It's a few days before the verdict in the trial of jailed Australian journalist Peter Greste and his Al Jazeera colleagues. And there's just been a dramatic breakthrough. An Egyptian journalist from their sister station, Al Jazeera Arabic, has been unexpectedly released.
I have won, and everybody who is a freedom fighter, either a journalist or anyone doing his work credibly and with honesty, has won.
Gaunt but triumphant, Abdullah El-Shami is free after 10 months and 1 week in jail. He was never charged with anything. He won his freedom after a 5-month hunger strike, shedding a third of his body weight. The campaign to release him has been unrelenting. And now at his home we meet, as his friends and family gather to celebrate.
The moment you hug your wife and any of your family, any of your friends, without somebody watching your back, without somebody telling you that, oh, time is over, get back to your cell, and and your hands leave each other and all that.
Yeah.
It's a moment, it's a sort of difference. So of course, you may be in prison for a month, 10 months, a year, or whatever, but that moment, it's like being born again, I think. I do believe I was born again.
El-Shami was in a different wing of the prison to the Al Jazeera English journalists, but he knew they were there. In contrast to his euphoric speech the night he was released, he's now much more guarded. Even though he's out of prison, he's not out of Egypt.
Do you think much about your other Al Jazeera colleagues also being in prison while you were in there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's enough. We'll stop.
Yeah.
Producer Baha Mohammed, Bureau Chief Mohamed Fahmy and reporter Peter Greste have spent 6 months in prison. How is it that journalists who were simply doing their jobs for their broadcaster Al Jazeera English found themselves here?
So are you getting a bit sick of this place now? This is home for you, right?
Well, it's a home away from home, yeah, but...
In a hotel room across Cairo, Peter Greste's brother Mike is hoping Monday's verdict will bring good news for his family. Since his older brother was arrested 6 months ago, he's been living out of a suitcase, shuttling back and forth between Australia and Egypt.
We all at one stage or another have a minor breakdown and have a bit of release of the emotions and get rid of some of the frustrations and pick ourselves up just to go again and deal with the next problem or the next challenge we have to face to try and secure Peter's freedom and prove his innocence.
I need to tell me anything if you
can read Arabic? You can read Arabic or...
Then find someone who can interpret for me.
Okay.
This is how Egyptian television conveyed the interrogation of Peter Greste and his colleagues.
قال له بقول لك ايه ريح نفسك وامسك شويه العيال دول وديهم السجن واقفل.
A leaked police video of the journalists confronted by authorities in their Cairo hotel room last December. There's sinister music and bizarre lines of questioning. It led to them being dubbed the Marriott cell.
ليه هم اختاروا المكان ده للتشغيل؟
ممكن يبقى أي فندق.
أيوة ليه بالذات فندق؟ ليه ما يكونش استوديو؟ ليه ما يكونش شقة في مكان تاني؟
The military government accused them of broadcasting false news and aiding the outlawed organisation, the Muslim Brotherhood. Greste had been in Egypt for just a fortnight, filling in as holiday relief. Week after week, Mike Greste has made the trek to Tora prison for a short and tightly controlled visit. Peter and his colleagues have shared a small cell. They pass the time as best as they can.
He just maintains a very disciplined regime. They have breakfast in the morning, which they sort of take their time doing, and certainly don't rush because, you know, they're in there for the 23 hours. So, you know, Pete made an interesting point that, you know, during the day, he doesn't lie down in his bed. You know, he lies down at night time for sleeping, but you know, when it comes to the daytime, he just sits on his bed or walks around the cell. Just refuses to lie down lest he sort of, you know, slacken off. And you know, when you're in oppressive conditions in the cells like they are, then, you know, having a healthy mind is crucial.
An hour a day exercise?
1 hour a day, 6 days a week. On Friday, they're locked down for the whole day.
Almost from the day I arrived in the Middle East, I've been coming to this courtroom every few weeks to report on the trial of my 3 professional colleagues. For any journalist doing their job, it's a sobering thought. Suddenly you're in jail and on trial, accused of spreading false news and facing 15 years in prison. Naturally enough, Australians are interested in Peter Greste, and some Egyptians are following the case of their national, producer Baha Mohammed. But day after day in the court, the dominant presence here has been their Canadian-Egyptian bureau chief, Mohamed Fahmy.
The search warrant is non-existent. This case is just another example of how, the government is cracking down on any kind of dissent. We are political prisoners. Mind you that we are in a criminal court.
Fahmy had only been working for Al Jazeera English for 2 months when he was arrested. He's determined to make sure the judge understands the weakness of the prosecution case. He's been outspoken in court, and that's given hope to his family and fiancee.
Your support in this case is something that really keeps us going.
Must be very difficult this past 6 months. How are you coping with it?
We're trying to be strong. It's like a nightmare for me and for his family. Every day we're trying to think what else to do. There is no shred of evidence in the case, and we don't know what to do. He loves journalism and he's so obsessed about his job. I mean, we even postponed our marriage in order for him to find a good, stable job. So this is what he always wanted to do.
In the days leading up to the verdict, a rare moment together for the couple when Fahmy is taken to hospital for a checkup on a shoulder injury. He's excited by the news that his colleague Abdullah El-Shami is out.
I'm just going to say that Peter is very strong. He wanted to speak like yesterday, and he wanted to get some stuff off his chest. We're very, very confident, and we were very happy when we heard that the Al Jazeera Arabic journalist was released. We were actually hugging each other and almost in tears to hear that.
Do you think that you'll be next?
We are very confident we're going to be next. Very confident.
For me to see someone that I know that he is innocent being treated like this, or being accused of something that he didn't do, was heartbreaking for me. It's because I love my country, and I didn't expect, when it came very close to me, I felt it was very painful for me. It was very painful. You know, like every time I think, okay, what if I couldn't help Mohammed? Who else will help him? I mean, he doesn't have an option. He doesn't have someone to deliver his voice or message to others. So, yeah.
For each family, it's been a grueling 6 months.
How are your parents?
Very tired, exhausted. Yeah, they're only just hanging in there.
It's been that roller coaster ride that's been one of the hardest things. You know, hopeful 1 minute and terribly concerning and worrying, and when we heard some not so good news.
On the other side of the world, Lois and Peter Greste anxiously await the news from Mike in Cairo and try to keep themselves busy. The family holiday farm in the hills of the Lockyer Valley, just outside of Brisbane, is full of memories of Peter and his brothers.
This is a house that we built when the boys were 10, 13 and 16.
So it was good times, and working our guts out during the height of the summer, and then going skinny dipping in the creek down the valley.
There's a few things that have been really important for Peter here. He had his 21st birthday party here. We had 45 people arrive on a very wet hot summer's night. It was pouring with rain, and they all slept over for the night in the lofts.
The Grestes have held countless media conferences, made hundreds of phone calls and sent thousands of emails since Peter and his colleagues were arrested.
We've lost our whole lives this past 6 months, in a sense. The whole family has. We've all concentrated on getting Peter out and resolving this whole thing. And we've had to put our lives aside.
The hardest thing for me to get my mind around was when we finally learned of what the so-called charges or allegations were. You know, fabricating news, aiding and abetting a terrorist organisation, you know, when he's done so much kind of, you might say, charity work on all the stories that he's done around Africa. There's always such dire need and want. And wherever possible, Peter's gone out of his way to help people and support people. And there, all of a sudden, he's accused of basically being in league with a terrorist group. I mean, you know, that to me still kind of resonates and almost blows my mind. And that's why I have to work so hard to contain my anger, you know, that someone should think of Peter that way.
Remember, he had tonsillitis beforehand?
It came as no surprise to his parents that Peter decided to pursue a career as a foreign correspondent.
He always was a child who was asked a lot of questions. He always was a good story writer.
Yeah, he was always a good story writer, yes.
His first overseas job for the BBC was in Afghanistan in 1995.
When we learnt that he was heading for Kabul, you know, at the time, you know, heaven forbid, couldn't you kind of organise something a little bit easier and less risky? But there it was, and, you know, we were pleased to support him.
Driving around Mogadishu, you can feel a little bit chaotic at times.
It's not the first time Peter's job has caused stress and worry for his parents. In 2005, he was in Somalia with his friend and BBC colleague Kate Payton when she was shot and killed.
When Kate was killed, it was a terrible time. We turned the radio on one morning and heard that a BBC journalist had been killed in Mogadishu, and we knew that Peter had gone in the day before. So it was... that wasn't pleasant.
It doesn't really hit you how vulnerable you are until it either happens to you or, sadly, you know, the person standing next to you. And because they were almost literally next to each other, you know, it hit Peter figuratively. Had that bullet strayed, you know, only that much, it could have been his life.
Just
Despite the loss of his colleague, Peter Greste persevered with his work. He continued covering the world's trouble spots, and that beat would eventually lead him to Egypt and the upheaval surrounding the Arab Spring. The truth is that Greste and his colleagues are minor players in a major diplomatic rift. What's really driving their case is a political dispute between Egypt and Qatar, a dispute exacerbated by Egypt's 3 years of turmoil. After the removal of the longtime dictator Hosni Mubarak in 2011, the people were suddenly free to express themselves, and they relished the chance. Soon the new president, Islamist Mohamed Morsi, was as hated as the old one. And by June last year, Egyptians led by secular protesters returned to the streets. The army staged a military coup and later branded the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist group. The crackdown was absolute. In August, 600 Brotherhood supporters were slaughtered in the streets. Dissent became illegal. Brotherhood leaders were arrested or fled into exile, many of them ending up in Qatar, where Al Jazeera is based. In the oil-rich Gulf state, prominent Egyptian Islamists have long found a platform on the sympathetic Al Jazeera Arabic news channels. The network is funded by Qatar's ruling family, who supported the Muslim Brotherhood government in Egypt. Arab states believe Qatar is trying to spread the Islamist message in the region. Al Jazeera English promotes itself as a separate entity. Fair, balanced, but enterprising journalism.
As the fight back against Sunni rebels goes on in northern Iraq, Sunni and
there are differences between the different channels of Al Jazeera because the demographic, the people that the different channels broadcast to, are by nature different. But what stays the same? The integrity of the journalism, the factual-based journalism that we do, the challenge that we mete out to all the different sides and participants in the story. That doesn't change.
Al Jazeera's managers were stunned by the flimsy evidence in this case. Pictures from the wrong channels, like Greste reporting in Somalia for the BBC, family holiday snaps, and even music videos were shown in the court.
I couldn't believe that this was serious. I truly couldn't believe that this was, real, actual footage. It just seemed so bizarre the way that whole segment was put together. It just blew our minds. I mean, it was so obvious that it was a setup.
There's only one rightful outcome in this verdict, and that is to throw this case out. Not one of the charges has stood up to scrutiny. The allegations made against the guys, made against Al Jazeera, are in so many respects quite absurd.
There are many layers of complexity in Egypt's legal system and precious little transparency. So in trying to find out what's really driving this case over the past 6 months, one lawyer I've been in touch with has been able to shed some light on what's going on. I'm going to go see him now. Farag Fathi Farag was Peter Greste's lawyer, that is, until he quit after a major falling out with Al Jazeera. What mistakes did Al Jazeera make in defending their people here in jail?
أول خطأ هو أن الجزيرة تعمل بدون ترخيص وما قالتش للموظفين بتوعها إنهم معهمش ترخيص.
Al Jazeera English boss Al Anstey denies the allegation, but acknowledges the 3 journalists didn't have media permits.
Al Jazeera English was fully licensed to operate. That's the key fact. That's great. Some of our journalists were accredited, and many other journalists operate in Egypt without accreditation. That is simply administrative.
The final straw for the lawyer came when Al Jazeera launched a separate legal case against Egypt. claiming $150 million in damages for the rough treatment of its journalists, the closure of its bureau, the jamming of its satellites.
وانا كان خلافي انه بدل ما ترفع القضيه دي انا ماليش دعوه يرفع قضيه ماليش دعوه يرفعوها ولا ما يرفعوش بس كان طلبي انها ما ترفعش الا بعد يوم الحكم عشان ما تتاثرش بيها المتهمين الموجودين.
That lawsuit, for me, is less about money and it's more about maintaining the pressure at every level to say to the Egyptian authorities and indeed the Egyptian legal system that what is taking place here is not judicial, it is not right. And to detain journalists, incredibly good journalists, who are simply doing the job of great journalism for such a great period of time is an outrage.
I do feel very positive despite the fact that at the back of our mind we are ready as anybody can be in situations like this to have to deal with the most unexpected. In the meantime, we feel very confident that Monday will produce the right outcome, even to the extent that we have bought some champagne and it's on ice.
And so, after 177 days behind bars and 12 often farcical courtroom sessions, it's finally Judgment Day for Peter Greste, Mohamed Fahmy and Baha Mohammed. They enter the holding cages looking confident, men hoping that on the evidence presented, they must be acquitted. Marwa Mohammed arrives exuding optimism. Mike Greste is joined by his brother Andrew straight off a plane from Queensland. Despite the massive global attention trained on this courtroom in Cairo, the judge isn't in any rush to arrive. As everyone waits, social media is buzzing internationally. The Twitter hashtag #FreeAJStaff is running hot.
Oh, look at these photos. Patrick Kinsley, lots of journos starting to trickle through.
Lois and Eurus Greste are at home in Brisbane watching their Twitter feeds, waiting for the news for which they've worked tirelessly.
That's Ordeal Fahmy, and that's Fahmy's fiancee, I think. I'm feeling very anxious and nervous and on edge, you know. The tension is right up there. I've sort of started to feel, oh, it's actually happening, you know. It's really sort of made me realise we are at that point now.
Champagne is in the fridge and their bags have been packed for an international flight to meet their son.
Defendants all seem to be in good spirits, waving and making victory signs. Let's hope they all get to walk free today. Oh, I so hope so too.
Judge Mohammed Shahata finally arrives. The Jazeera 3 huddle together.
Peter Greste.
The verdict, 7 years jail for each of them and 3 more for Baha.
Seven years for Peter Greste, Repent Bahus, and 5 other 6 defendants present. My God.
Oh.
My God.
Oh,
sorry.
That's crazy.
Finish.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Oh, my God.
Oh. I thought we were prepared for the unexpected. Oh. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I've got to take this call. I've got to take this call.
What happened? You didn't say.
7 years!
Lois and Greste had all but convinced themselves this would be Peter's last day in jail. The result is incomprehensible.
Oh, that's the fine.
Back in the court in Cairo, Mike is in despair. He's almost trampled by photographers reacting to the shocking sentences. Mohamed Fahmy struggles as police try to drag him away. They attempt to close down all reporting, but there's time for a final word from Mike.
I'm totally gutted. It's devastating. It's the death of democracy in Egypt.
Outside the court, family and journalists shake their heads in disbelief.
What did they do? They were journalists doing their work. We've seen the videos, nothing there to incriminate them. And it's just, you know, they're trying to send a message to other journalists to silence any voices of dissent.
I'm gutted, devastated. I mean, it's difficult to come up with words to describe how I'm feeling. It's definitely wasn't something I was expecting. Unbelievable.
Were you expecting an acquittal?
I was hoping for an acquittal. It's difficult to have too many expectations, but I can honestly say I wasn't expecting that.
Controlling the media and silencing critics has been practiced by every Egyptian government, but the El-Sisi regime has taken repression to a new extreme level. The Al Jazeera verdicts represent a harsh warning to all journalists. Watch what you say if you don't want to end up in Tora prison.
He will keep in the prison 7 years? For what? Can you, one of you, tell me for what? Not only picture, tell me for what?
There is no hope in the judicial system. We had hope in the judicial system. Now we know there is no hope.
For Marwa Mohammed, tears and more to come. A few hours before, she was planning her wedding. Now, she's speechless.
It's enough, thank you. Marwa, thank you.